Well, good morning. My name is Bob Galler. I'm from New York. Before I get started, I just wanted to acknowledge some folks. Dr. Ward, thank you for inviting me. I've known Vic since he was a resident, and it's amazing to see the surgeon he's involved into. So, absolutely welcome. So, thank you very much. The team, 20 strangers, 20 friends. Awesome, awesome. I love it. So I had two talks that I prepared. One is kind of boring, talks about the columns of the spine. This is stuff that we take our board exams for, and it's something that I'm more than happy to provide the residents with a PDF file, and you can learn about NE, you can learn about Holdsworth, all of the different criteria for fusion. I thought we'd have some fun and really just go over how we do this crazy stuff, because you've seen some images of the spine, and the question really becomes, how did that get that way? So, let's see if I can get this to work. There it is. There's my mouse. Okay. So in the States, we have to disclose whether or not we're under the payroll of a company, and I am not. I have taught for the various companies, whether it be Depew or Synthes or Medtronic or Stryker or K2M, not currently under any financial agreements. So I'm going to just start with this. Is Dr. O'Ward here? I'm just wondering if this passes the squinted test. So this is a case, if you look at the label up there, from the Muhimbili Hospital in Dar es Salaam. So anything I'm talking about today is applicable to East African neurosurgery. Some of it is far-fetched, and we have instrumentation and techniques that may not be readily available to you. So I'll try to talk about the alternatives that you might consider in a resource-limited environment. But this is a real case. This is a young man who basically had a ton of bricks dropped on him. He was standing next to a dump truck, and they were building something, and this whole thing just came down on him. So, sorry, Patty, you're right there. I can't help myself. So describe what you see pretty briefly, if you can.
Yeah, so we see a CT scan, 3D reconstruction of thoracolumbar spine of a patient with, let's say, a totally destroyed spine, 5 or D2. That's thoracolumbar junction, T12, L1. I'm sure he's RPG.
Yeah. So clinically, this was brought the indication for that. In the States, patients are going to get operated on. The likelihood of neurologic recovery is slim to none, but the understanding is they can be ambulated, passively and discharged through rehab in a more efficient way, rather than lay on their back, develop bed sores, and then succumb to urinary tract infection, pneumonia, and the like. So, since I was there, we elected to offer the patient surgery. We had implants. So, if you take a look at this picture, I know it's a little bit difficult, but this is the interspinous ligament here and here. Okay? That just gives you an idea of what we had before. So what I did was a reduction of that and got them pretty straight. We put in rods on one side and then on the other. And we got a pretty fair construct. And fortunately, the patient did well on a medical standpoint. Unfortunately, there was no neurologic recovery. But the indication here in my mind was, if we stabilize this young man, at least he can be given some physio and mobilized in an effective way to avoid the long-term sequelae of spinal cord injury. So this is our first United States case, okay? 50-year-old high-velocity MBA and other complete. He was in spinal residence because I wanted to stay on time. Again, here's another nasty injury going through all three columns. Is a complete What are the techniques that we use? Well, in spinal surgery, we can go from the front, we can go from the side, and we can go from the back. And so that requires an access surgeon generally. Some of us that were trained with the ability to access the spine this way, I don't anymore. I just don't want to take the liability in this day and age. I have some colleagues that do their own thoracotomies. I stopped doing that the minute I got into residency because the malpractice implications in the States preclude doing that. But there are plenty of surgeons who do their own approaches. Posterolateral, something called a costotransversectomy, or lateral extracavitary approach, and this is done from the back of the spine. It doesn't require an access surgeon, and you can do a lot through that approach. And then posteriorly, purely a laminectomy, or what we call a transpedicular approach. Again, you can kind of combine the two. It does allow for access to the neural elements. These are all features of these. Before you get to the neural elements and you stay away from them, you can do the decompression fusion. This is a quick look at some landmarks. And so, as I mentioned, I'm happy to make some copies of this presentation so that the residents will have these. You want to know where you're going to put these screws. And so the thoracic spine is a little different than the lumbar spine, and the landmarks change at each level. And you can see on the left, the size of the pedicle in the AP view is also quite variable. So, generally, I'll get stuck with something where it's always going to be T4, 5, and 6, which is the smallest pedicles in the spine, and you just realize that you're going to be in for a world of hurt. The angle of the pedicle screw, again, is shown on the right side, and that does vary. It becomes more flush as you go down. This is another look at those landmarks or trajectories. And there are different trajectories one can take to put screws into the spine. One is basically parallel with the end plate of the spine, and one is more parallel with the path of the pedicle. One is called anatomical, and one is called true. And so, as far as I'm concerned, any pedicle screw that goes in and doesn't hit the spinal cord or the nerves is a good one. But when my screws kind of have different varying angles, I go, no, I put that one into the anatomical trajectory, this one with the true. This is a little picture showing exactly sort of the landmarks and how we get these devices in. Any of the scrub team that's been working with us, unfortunately, can't really see sometimes what's going on in that incision. But what we're doing is we're exposing the surface of the spine. We're drilling a hole into the entry point of the pedicle. This is a nice picture because it really does show some of the questions. These are the best PIMP answers, particularly for said transverse process pars interarticularis. That area there, you draw a little mind's eye triangle and you get through it, that generally will lead you into the pedicle. There are a couple of other ways to put pedicle screws in the thoracic spine. The pedicle itself, of course, can accept the screw, and if you have the option to measure them with CAT scans, it allows you to pick the right length and diameter. There's something called an in and out technique, which is basically going through the rib, getting that cortical bone to bite the threads of the screw before going into the vertebral body. I try not to use that, but sometimes you have no choice, and you have to sort of put the patients get a pedicle of feeling it. So if you're putting screws in at any time, there's no harm in opening up the canal enough so that you can palpate the pedicle so that you can give yourself every chance possible putting that screw in the right place. These are some pictures showing some sawbones, and I understand we're going to do a bit of a lab later, so that'll be something that we can do on laminectomy now. We shifted into, and you see that little target sign there, a different entry point is noted for that pedicle screw, and the other picture shows some X-ray confirmation of that. Again, more images showing the placement with a description of their trajectory and also angulation. Again, this is the difference between the thoracic and the lumbar spine. The entry point here is generally at that junction of the transverse process near the mammillary eminence, lateral to that superior articular facet. It's sort of pretty brutal, jamming this huge ice pick into the spine, then palpating the hole with the ball feeler. So that's what we're here. I don't know if Peter or Ruto are here. These are the instruments that we've been handing most of us to be put in. That's the tap. And then sometimes we put a wire in to confirm its position. Moving down, the sacrum has a different set of entry points and has some specific angles that we concern ourselves with. I won't bore you with those details now. So for that case, we fixated debris above and below, got a fair alignment, and we did show. Here's an intraoperative shot showing the ligament as it's been disrupted. We get a bit of alignment along the way. And some nice post-op imaging showing the passive decompression. I probably could have pushed that bone fragment down a little bit more through that pedicle, but as I recall, this patient had a CSF leak because it was such a massive injury, and I got conservative. And so here you have the construct, the alignment is improved, and you can see that we've got a few strikes there, thank goodness. We did a conference with complications. I can assure you, I can show you that with the best of intentions, bad things can happen. And this is what the construct looks like, or a vehicle accident with a fracture dislocation. And again, here we have an even larger operation because he had two non-adjacent fractures and instability of the spine throughout. So we got a pretty good correction and actually got pretty good balance so that undervertebral body pleural effusions is essentially been destroyed. And so going back to that little grid, I know you all memorized it after glancing at it for 1 second, but you know, would you do a laminectomy alone? For the residents, any of you guys? No, right? You're all shaking your heads. Good. I'm teaching you well. It's not a good idea. A lateral posterior approach. You could do an extracavitary. You could go outside the rib. It looks great on paper, and if you read the original article, it's a nice little approach. You take the rib while you're there, you in this graft. And so the problem is, how do I keep on, okay? With an anterior cage and posterior stabilization. So basically, those cages didn't get to the front of the thoracic spine magically. The surgeon that did it had to get there. So it's become extremely popular. It showed up on 2 of our complication cases today, and give a little bit of background on how those materials got there. So laminectomy has been shown to evolve because now we have pedicle screws. In a resource-limited environment, I can take time to talk to you about wiring a Lukey rod, and that's something that may be the way to do it because it's what we're going to talk about. Additionally, we have these things called expandable cages. And it's what it sounds like. It's a cage that expands that can go into the spine. This is that costotransversectomy from the original paper. This is sort of a model showing how we do those cage placements. All right, so I'll step through. You get a laminectomy, you decompress the spine, you evacuate the infection or get rid of the tumor. You remove the rib heads, you remove the transverse processes at the level, and you see these nerves dangling in the wind. Then what you can do is basically get around the area and drill out 1 or 2 pedicles to basically get around the spinal cord. And what you see here, now I don't ligate 3 of them generally, but you can ligate some of the thoracic nerve roots without causing a major problem. They will end up with potentially a radiculitis in the area, but that's a small price to pay for having a massive spine surgery, I think. You essentially clear that area. Then what we can do is put in one of these titanium cages that you saw on the x-ray into that space and essentially crank it up. In the past, with the non-expandable cages, you couldn't fit a rigid, what we call a harness cage in that area because there's no possible way of really getting it in without causing havoc. That could be put into the front, but again, that's where the chest surgeon needed to be involved. Here, you see that cage is being expanded, and you know the rod is on the other. This is a cadaver. We excavated this area of the spine, and then you can see we snuck that cage in there, ligating the 1 nerve root. And so this is that case. Did a bunch of measurements, made sure that we had the right instrumentation and we get the right materials in, we localize, we put some screws in. The movie doesn't work, I don't think. We don't have time for it. These are just a bunch of movies that don't work. And basically we get our cage in there, and we keep pushing it across until we get it straight, and specifically. And there's a lot of lessons that we've all learned the hard way, which is don't overexpand, don't overdo, and try to make sure you visualize everything. So the little A is where I come from, and I'm very grateful for being invited here. Thanks.